on 43 minutes. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock.
Recent studies prove that grasshoppers contain enough nutrients to be a new major food group on the food pyramid. The FDA has announced that grasshoppers will soon be making their way onto our dinner plates. Grill them, fry them, eat them raw, or put them in a stew. Either way, they'll be on the menu.
Change the name.
Turmoil over the name of H1N1 flu. A college student who is studying numerology in Nebraska is vowing to take her case to the Supreme Court. She is adamant that the title H1N1 is doing an injustice to the numerical system and therefore believes that the name should be changed to H-O-N-E-N-O-N-E. Just how far will she go down the number line to get the name changed?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Anil Sani, and thank you for joining us on this Thursday evening at 43 minutes. We'll get to other top stories in just a few minutes, but right now we have to get to a case ethical issue that we've been following for the last few weeks concerning a 65-year-old Chinese-American man who was diagnosed with lung cancer over a year ago. Now, what's the catch? He had no idea he was battling cancer. He was just told by the nurses and physicians that he was diagnosed with just simple lung disease. Unfortunately, it was a very sad day in the Lee household because Mr. Lee was admitted to a hospital yesterday where he was pronounced dead. Let's take it over to Kylie Reeser, who's actually outside the Lee home right now. She can give us a little update.
Thanks, Anil. That's right. I'm here just outside the home where inside Mr. Lee's family members are planning funeral arrangements. This story is unique because it is a case of ethics instead of your usual legal case. Let me give you a little background information. Mr. Lee was diagnosed with lung cancer over a year ago, but was only told by doctors, nurses, and his family members that he had some kind of lung disease. This was because his wife, Mrs. Lee, and one of his sons were adamant that he not be told the truth of his diagnosis. When he was first diagnosed, Mr. Lee was reported as competent, and his healthcare team wanted to advocate for their patient, but were faced with the problem of his family members wanting to withhold the information. Thus, Mr. Lee could not participate in any discussions to make some decisions for his treatment. It appeared that Mrs. Lee and her son were in denial about Mr. Lee's condition, stating that if he would only try harder to eat some more, he would be cured. They ignored the advice from the team to tell Mr. Lee the truth about his condition. If they had done so, Mr. Lee may have been able to get the treatment he needed, and this story could have had a happier ending.
Thank you, Kylie. What an unusual case this is. Let's take a look at some of the moral principles that are involved here. It seems as though the patient's autonomy was violated. Mr. Lee was not allowed to decide for himself. This is a critical piece of the puzzle because as time passed, his condition just worsened and became increasingly incompetent. As we got the news today, he died because no action was taken. Another principle here is non-malfeasance. The healthcare team did not purposely inflict harm on Mr. Lee, but because they did not take any action, they did, however, cause harm in a certain way. Beneficence was involved here also because the team was trying to be respectful towards the family and try to do good to promote his health by giving him medication for his so-called disease. Because Mr. Lee really had cancer and didn't sign a consent form to be treated for it, the medication ultimately wasn't good enough to promote his health. The beneficence could have been improved if Mr. Lee had known of all the information about his condition. It seems as if veracity was also violated here. The team did not tell Mr. Lee the complete truth about his diagnosis. This was because the family wished the critical information would be withheld from Mr. Lee. Should the team have honored the family's request? Finally, the team demonstrated justice and tried to be fair. They listened to the family and did not engage in any paternalistic views toward them. They showed respect and desire to help the patient get better. Kylie, can you tell us any ways that the situation could have been resolved any differently?
Yes, it is possible that the healthcare team could have taken a more aggressive stance and advocated for their patient. This means they would have told Mr. Lee the complete truth of his diagnosis, even though it meant risking Mr. Lee's family members becoming angry and upset with them for sharing the information. But by telling Mr. Lee the truth, they could have started cancer treatment and potentially prolonged or even saved his life. In another scenario, which almost seems to be the case here, The team could have made the final decision to respect the family's culture and wishes by withholding the truth from Mr. Lee. Of course, this would have risked Mr. Lee's well-being, potentially causing harm to him, decrease in health, and even death. Sadly, this is what we saw happening here in the last couple of weeks. And finally, the team could have made an alternative decision by taking the case to the Medical Facilities Ethics Committee. As the situation got worse and no resolution could be made, the Ethics Committee would have discussed and analyzed the information, the situation, and then helped to influence the thoughts and beliefs of both the family and the medical team. Anil, what are your thoughts here?
This is a tough situation here. It seems that we're left with two questions. Even though the patient was competent in the beginning, should have the healthcare team respected and honored the family's request to keep the truth of Mr. Lee's diagnosis a secret from him, risking possible death? Or should the team have been more vigorous in advocating for the patient's rights, telling him the complete facts of his condition, and allowing him to have been part of the decision-making process, but risking upsetting the families? It's a tough call here, but according to the American Nurses Association Code of Ethics for Nurses, the teams included the nurses' primary concern should be for the patients. Mr. Lee was competent when he was first received his lung disease diagnosis, therefore focus should have been completely on him instead of his family. The nurse is also responsible for promoting, advancing, and striving to protect the health, safety, and rights of his or her patient. This would also mean disregarding Mr. Lee's family wishes.
Absolutely, Anil. While this may not be a legal situation and is not in violation of any laws, one could be left wondering if the healthcare team was negligent by failing to use ordinary and reasonable care to treat the cancer patient. It's always a tough case to crack when ethics are involved. Reporting live for 43 minutes, this is Kylie Reeser. Now back to you in the newsroom.
Thanks for that update, Kylie. This case is definitely one of the quite controversial ones and will receive a lot of publicity in the next few days. Who is right and who is wrong? Was it ethical to withhold the vital information from Mr. Lee? You know, like the facts and treatment possibilities that could have helped save his life? We'll have more on the story as soon as we get more information. Now let's go over to Dan, who has more stories on the possible food of the future and rising upheaval of the name H1N1 flu. Dan, what's the latest concerning these topics?